From Jeff Bezos's legendary old Honda to Mark Zuckerberg's humble hatchback, some billionaires flat out refuse to upgrade their rights. But why? Is it just for show? Or is there a secret reason they stay so frugal? Today, we're looking at the surprisingly cheap cars driven by the world's wealthiest people. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you might realize that the car in your driveway right now is actually the ultimate billionaire status symbol. In the late 90s, Amazon was no longer a garage startup. It was a massive, publicly traded company, and Jeff Bezos was officially a multi-millionaire on his way to becoming the richest man in history. Investors and employees expected to see Bezos roll up to the office in a Porsche or maybe a sleek Mercedes. They wanted to see the CEO looking the part of a tech titan. Instead, Bezos was still driving the same car he had when he was packing boxes himself. In a famous 1999 interview with 60 Minutes, the interviewer asked him why on earth he was still driving a 1996 Honda Accord. Bezos just laughed and said, "It's a perfectly good car." At the time, he was worth over $10 billion. Today, even though he has a private jet and a massive car collection, that Honda Accord remains the symbol of his day one philosophy. It proved to his team that every dollar saved on a flashy car was a dollar invested back into the customer. Mark Zuckerberg is the poster child for stealth wealth. He famously wears the same gray t-shirt and hoodie every day to save mental energy. So, when it comes to his garage, you'd expect something functional, but perhaps high-end, right? Zuck lives in Palo Alto, one of the most expensive zip codes in the world. His neighbors are driving Teslas, Ferraris, and custom-made electric supercars. If Mark wanted to show off, he could buy the entire street and turn it into a racetrack. Instead, Zuckerberg has been spotted for years driving a Honda Fit, known as the Honda Jazz in some places, and a Volkswagen Golf GTI. We're talking about a car that costs less than $30,000 brand new. He also owns an accurate TSX, which he says is safe, comfortable, and not ostentatious. While he did eventually splurge on a Pagani Huayra, his daily choices scream, "I don't need your validation." To him, a car is just a tool to get from point A to point B without drawing a crowd. Warren Buffett is arguably the greatest investor of all time. He's worth over $130 billion, yet he still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. When it comes to cars, Buffett is the king of buying used. For over a decade, Buffett drove a 2006 Cadillac DTS. It was a fine car, but eventually it started looking a little tired. His daughter, Susie, eventually told him it was getting embarrassing. She literally had to stage an intervention because her billionaire father refused to upgrade a car that was over 8 years old. Buffett finally gave in and bought a 2014 Cadillac XTS. But here's the kicker. He only bought the new one because his daughter convinced him it was bad for the Cadillac brand to have the world's most famous investor driving a beat-up old model. He even went to the dealership himself and negotiated the deal. He doesn't care about the leather or the tech. He just wants a reliable American car that starts every time. Ingvar Kamprad, the founder of IKEA, was legendary for his frugality. He reportedly flew coach, stayed in budget hotels, and even recycled tea bags. He built a global empire by obsessing with saving every penny. As IKEA became a household name, Kamrad's net worth skyrocketed into the tens of billions. People expected him to finally enjoy the fruits of his labor. Surely, the man who furnished the world could afford a decent ride. For 2 decades, Kamprad drove a 1993 Volvo 240 GL. He only stopped driving it when someone finally convinced him that at 20 years old, it was no longer safe for a man in his late 80s to be behind the wheel. For Kamprad, spending money on a luxury car was a sin. He lived by the philosophy that IKEA people do not drive flashy cars. He wanted to lead by example, showing that wealth shouldn't change your core values of simplicity and thrift. Alice Walton is one of the richest women in the world, with a fortune rooted in the Walmart empire. Unlike the tech billionaires in Silicon Valley, the Waltons have always had a very down-home image. When you have billions of dollars and live on a massive ranch, you could easily buy a custom-built armored SUV or a luxury Bentley Bentayga to cruise your property. Instead, Alice Walton opted for a 2006 Ford F-150 King Ranch. It's a nice truck, sure, but it's a truck. The reason? Her father, Sam Walton, famously drove a 1979 Ford F-150 until he passed away. When asked why he didn't buy a Rolls-Royce, Sam famously said, "What am I supposed to carry my dogs in? A Rolls-Royce?" Alice carries on that legacy. It's a nod to her roots and a practical choice for a woman who actually spends time on a ranch. Steve Ballmer is the high-energy former CEO of Microsoft and the owner of the LA Clippers. He's worth over $120 billion. He's known for his loud, boisterous personality. You'd think his car would be just as loud. Ballmer could drive anything. He could have a fleet of Ferraris painted in Clippers colors if you wanted. But Steve has a very specific rule when it comes to vehicles. He drives a Ford Fusion Hybrid. Why? Because his father worked at Ford for decades. Ballmer is incredibly loyal to the brand that put food on his table growing up. He even had the CEO of Ford personally deliver a newer model to him to celebrate Microsoft's partnership with the carmaker. For one of the richest men on earth, a mid-sized Ford sedan is the ultimate tribute to his family history. Larry Page and Sergey Brin changed the world with Google. In the early 2000s, they were the young, hip faces of the new economy. They were billionaires before they were 30. In the early days of their wealth, most people in their position were buying Ferraris and Lamborghinis to show they had arrived. But the Google founders wanted to signal something different. They both became famous for driving the Toyota Prius. Back then, the Prius wasn't just a cheap car, it was a statement. It said, "I care more about the environment and efficiency than I do about V12 engines." Even though they eventually invested in Tesla and bought more expensive toys, the Prius remained their daily for years. It helped spark a trend in Silicon Valley, where status was measured by your carbon footprint, not your 0 to 60 time. So, we've seen the Hondas, the Fords, and the old Volvos. But why? Why would someone with $1 billion choose a car that gets stuck in the mud or doesn't have heated seats? Is it just for PR? Are they trying to look humble so we don't realize how much money they actually have? Or is there something deeper? It's actually a mix of three things. First, depreciation. Billionaires hate losing money. A $300,000 Ferrari loses $50,000 the moment you drive it off the lot. A $20,000 Honda? It's already hit its floor. Second, invisible status. When you're at that level of wealth, you don't need a car to tell people you're rich. Everyone already knows. Driving a normal car becomes a power move in itself. It says, "I'm so rich, I don't even have to try." Third, and most importantly, focus. People like Bezos and Zuckerberg view decisions as energy drains. If they spend an hour picking out the leather stitching for a custom Bentley, that's an hour they didn't spend growing their empire. By driving a simple car, they remove one more complicated decision from their lives. So, next time you're sitting at a red light in your Toyota or your Ford, look to your left. You might not see a billionaire, but you're certainly driving like one. These people didn't get rich by spending money on things that lose value. They got rich by focusing on what actually matters. Which of these billionaire beaters would you actually drive if you had $1 billion? Would you stick with a reliable Honda, or would you fold immediately and buy the Lamborghini? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this look into the secret habits of the super rich, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And if you want to see more content on the billionaire mindset and the crazy things they spend or don't spend their money on, hit subscribe and turn on that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.